Okay, so I want to just say this about God of War, and I'm just going to just try to get to the point here. There are a lot of people that are hating the game. There are a lot of people that love the game. My position on God of War, or should I say Wife of War, really comes from the business side of things because that's something that I really prefer to talk about when it comes to gaming because I see too few creators really diving into that aspect. Because I don't want to be one of those guys who just hate something for the sake of hating it. So if you're new to the channel, hopefully you'll consider subscribing, maybe even become a channel member because, I'm poor over here in New York. So every little bit helps. But I just wanted to just give my general thoughts on the whole Wife of War, God of War Laufey situation that has been floating around. I've seen some absolutely hilarious memes. I laughed my collective ass off of some of them. I just to kind of get straight to the point, I don't think that game is going to do the sort of business that Santa Monica Studios and Sony expect or need it to do. I just don't. It doesn't mean that it's inherently a bad game, because what little I've seen of it so far, Laufey, it's not the worst game I've seen. However, when when you take a franchise that has been around for decades, and we know what God of War is, we know what it represents. When you basically do a seismic shift the way that you do, it's unnecessary. You are essentially rocking the boat and you didn't have to. Now, one of the questions I would ask the Sony community, because I'm on Microsoft, I have an Xbox. So what happens with God of War, it makes no difference to me because, I'm not a Sony person. But for you Sony folk out there, I question when you guys looked at that showcase, the God of War 20-minute gameplay. If that game was titled anything else, if it was titled something completely different, I wonder how many of those Sony people would go out, pre-order, hype the game up, review it positively if they're content creators, and end up buying the game. I actually wonder that. I don't know if I will really learn that answer, but I believe that if the game was titled something other than God of War and allowed to stand on its own, I feel that the game would not have gotten the type of backlash that it is currently getting right now. On the other side of things, when I look at people's tweets and you have people that are very much in favor, even some content creators I've seen where they're like, well, they were calling people incels. That's a word from my generation we've never fucking had before. So I had to look it up. And so people that are hating on the God of War Laufey are apparently incels, apparently. And also people who hate female protagonists. So I've heard that. Now, to be fair, there are male gamers out there that don't like female protagonists in games. They exist. I don't agree, but they do exist. But I don't believe that the main fundamental reasoning for the backlash is solely because it's a female. There are some people that did not like the floaty style sliding around the map gameplay. Some people have criticized that it looks a little like AI, which personally it's whatever to me, because I understand AI, unless something drastic happens, AI is the way of the future. I'm just preparing myself for the eventuality of it. But you do have people that just, they hate AI, and anything AI, even if they sense something is AI, they're out of it. So you have those people. You have the people that did not like the little Disney looking animated character. I don't know if it was it looked like some random creature. I don't know what the fuck it was. They showed it very early on in the showcase. And you had this gelatinous cube looking thing that had a sword sticking out of it. And I'm like, and then I found out that the guy that's voice acting it is the guy Huey of what's his name? He's a Quaid. I forgot his fucking first name, but he's a guy that played Huey in The Boys, the popular show on Amazon. So what was funny is that they got that guy to voice act a cube, which I'm sure cost Santa Monica Studios a good amount of money. And for reasons unknown, they also motion captured him with a cube like rig on him. I don't know why you would need to motion capture a gelatinous cube in today's age of game development. I could see if he was like a legitimate, like a character, like a humanoid character. But this is a gelatinous substance that they decided to they just motion captured jelly, and it baffles me. Now, originally, moving away from that craziness, the story was revealed that this is set, she is in the afterlife. So she dies. So this looks like it is happening in between God of War 2018 and Ragnarok, because I believe, based on my memory, Atreus and Kratos, they set her body aflame on the pyre at the end of God of War 2018. And with her burning, she ends up reanimating in some way, and now she's existing in the afterlife. That aspect, I will admit, it does intrigue me, because there's not many games in my 40 years of playing video games where they go in that route, where your character dies and there's like a whole new adventure in the afterlife. There are some, but that change made this game a little bit more intriguing, because originally I think most people were basically under the impression that this game was going to be a prequel, that this game was going to be more so operating before she met Kratos. So now that it's kind of centered around her adventure within the afterlife, it does intrigue me. However, the my question is, and obviously we don't know, is what is her end game? What is her purpose? What is she doing in the afterlife that has any significant meaning? She's already dead. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna die again? I don't know what the stakes are. I don't know why we should care for her in this game. Now, I have heard some theories of people suggesting that maybe while she's in this realm, there are instances where they're going to try to tie in some events of her game to what happened maybe along the journey of God of War Ragnarok. Maybe. So I'm just very curious about that. In terms of how the character model looks, again, this is you know another Western or whatever. I guess it's Western, right? America, Canada. I guess, game developers over here, um, uglifying females. I've seen the voice actress of Faye, and for whatever reason, developers, I can't say that this is an accident. This is very purposeful, because I've been seeing many times where game developers are purposely uglifying women. And if you look at the other side of the spectrum, I've even seen somebody post a photo on Twitter where they show the comparison of female characters versus male characters, and the male characters look just like, or if not close enough to, their male counterpart. If you look at Keanu Reeves in Cyberpunk, if you look at Idris Elba in Cyberpunk, if you look at the guy that played, I think his name is Dominic Monaghan. Is that his name? I forgot his name, but he's the guy that plays Kyle Kestis in the Star Wars Jedi Survivor and whatnot. Basically, most of the male voice actors, they're having their likeness portrayed very accurately. And then it's like, when you look at the females, it's like, I don't like, if this was just a one-off, if it was a one-off, I can understand. But it looks like it's just something that's continuously happening. If you look at the Abomination, the hideous looking character design of Kay Vess from Star Wars Outlaws, that is a horrific looking female model. But if you've seen the actual voice actress of Star Wars Outlaws, she looks beautiful. I think she's a Venezuelan lady, and and it's like, in Star Wars Outlaws, they made the character look like absolute shit. In fact, let me see if I can actually even just have some fun and just show you what I mean here. Let me see. Let me type this up here. Kay Vess, actress who played. Let me look at images so I want to get this on the screen. Okay, here we go. So check this out. This on the right is the woman that played Kay Vess. Kay Vess is the woman, is the Abomination on the left. So I can't honestly look at Western game developers and say, you know what, this was by accident. I can't say that, because there's been so many instances where they have purposely uglified the female character. It's absolutely egregious, and there's no excuse for this. It has happened far too many times. So now when I look at the character of the woman that plays Faye, again, maybe not as big a difference, but there is a difference. And it's like, you have to look at this and say, this is purposeful. This is not accidental. Especially, as I mentioned, when you look at the male characters, they get the male characters down just fine. You know what I'm saying? So it's very, very interesting. But, kind of getting back to the whole God of War situation, the game is very divisive. And ultimately, I don't believe a standalone game was needed for the Faye character. To be quite honest, if you really wanted to make a female-led God of War spinoff, you had other options. You could have used, and I got this idea from somebody off Twitter. You could have used that the daughter of Thor, Thrud, I think was her name. You could have used her. You could have used Freya, which would be my personal pick. You know, as far as I'm concerned, I would have been much more invested in seeing an actual game featuring Kratos and Freya, because the way the actress portrayed Freya was masterclass. I felt a lot of emotional depth coming from that character. Freya was powerful, she was strong, she she was vulnerable, she had a lot of hurt, a lot of regret. She was a very well-written character. And people that played the God of War, you know, and the 2018 game and Ragnarok, those players got a chance to really spend a lot of time with Freya. And I just think it's stupid, and I'm going to use stupid as a word here, that you just say to hell with that, and you're going to go with his dead wife as a full-on game. Because I don't want to just say, hey, you know what, they shouldn't have made it. If you wanted to go that direction, you could have just simply made it a DLC. You could have just made that a fucking DLC and called it a day. And I've said that same exact thing when I was talking about the so-called Black Samurai, Yasuke, when it came to Assassin's Creed Shadows. You could have just made him as a DLC character and have him, you know, with his own story maybe a year or so after the release of Assassin's Creed Shadows, and it would have went over, I think, a little bit better. They should have done that same thing with God of War. Now, another thing to bear in mind is simply this. Whenever you have a game of a large running franchise, a lot of these decisions are done years in advance. For instance, we have found out that a woman by the name of Alana Pierce, who some don't like her, some, you know, like her as a content creator. She's been a bit controversial. I don't know all of the controversies surrounding Alana Pierce. I just know I find her attractive. I know that. But you know, there are people that, you know, they don't fuck with her like that. So it came out that that she's the one that wrote the story of the God of War Laufey game, which also set, you know, a lot of people, you know, off the deep end. You know, a lot of people was like, oh man, you know, blah 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 blah. Me, like I said, it's whatever to me. I just know, like, okay, this is another piece of the story that I have. Now, there are some people that were saying that she lied about her involvement in God of War Ragnarok. Then I saw what is it? A stream that she had where she was going into detail about, oh, it wasn't Ragnarok, it was this particular game I wrote for, and I was sworn to secrecy for like 4 to 6 years or something like that. And now this is the game they decided to go on. And then she responded to a few comments in her stream. Well, not in her stream. I think it was after the stream ended, and it was people that she was responding to in the comment section, and she was saying that somebody asked her, "Did you write everything?" Or something along those lines, and she said, "I wrote the narration." She said, "I didn't write the individual dialogue of the characters," or something to that effect. So it was very, you know, it's interesting. But again, I don't believe that Faye needed her own game. I just don't believe that it warranted that. I believe that her story could have been told in a DLC. And I'm pretty sure after I post this segment to my YouTube channel, and if anybody happens to stick around long enough and hear me say what I just said, they're going to come after me in the comment section saying I'm an incel, I'm this, I hate women, all kinds of other fucking nonsense. Believe me, I've heard it on Twitter already. I've already had somebody say I'm gay because I don't like females or some dumb shit. I wish I had Goku instant transmission to where I can warp to wherever that fucker was and I let me not get banned on YouTube for saying some shit. But let's just say I would handle mine like a man. Let's just put it that way. Because there's people that just say a lot of slick shit and they know they're never going to be face to face with you. It's always going to be across the internet. So I had to kind of like just like it's whatever. People going to say what they're going to say, even though I'm not outright condemning the game per se. I just feel, or maybe it can be interpreted that way, but I just don't think that this aspect of the Faye character warrants a full entry into the God of War universe. I just don't believe it warrants all of that. That's just my personal belief based on the many years I've played narrative-driven games. Her story could have been summed up in a DLC. And now I feel that they're placing her in an afterlife situation. It just looks to me like they're grasping at straws. It's like you're trying to make her story more than what it was. That's what it looks like to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't think that this game is going to do the sort of business that, and I said this at the beginning of the video, I don't think it's going to be doing the sort of business Santa Monica Studios and Sony needs. I just don't, because there is going to be a very small audience for this game. You have millions upon millions upon millions of people that love God of War as a franchise, that love Kratos as a character, that want to see this change, this evolution of the character. He's not the same mindless, rampaging human. He has a lot more emotional depth. If I can be so bold, it's almost like looking at a Dragon Ball character like Vegeta. Vegeta now has a lot more character depth and personality than when he first got on into Dragon Ball. And I feel Kratos is the same way. And then again, looking at the dynamic that he has with Freya, the fact that he killed Freya's son at, in the God of War 2018 game, and the way she was hunting Kratos, and then she learns that, Kratos had a very horrible past. Like, I want to see their dynamic. No offense to Faye. You had your time. You unfortunately died. It's time for Kratos to move on. And I believe Kratos moved on with Freya. And I believe Freya is a very powerful character in her own right, that she can stand in her own light. That's not to say that Faye can't do the same. See, I'm trying to counter all of the potential ignorant comments this video is going to get. I'm trying to do an alpha counter, but I know I'm not going to get all of them. I'm not saying that Faye is worthless. I'm not saying that Faye is pointless or incapable. I'm not saying any of that shit. What I am saying is that this story of Faye should have been a DLC. It should have been a DLC. That's that right now they should be exploring the dynamic between Freya and Kratos. That's what they should be focusing on right now. If you wanted to have Kratos share the limelight with somebody, if you want to have that female representation or what have you, Freya is the better pick, because players got more invested in Freya than the 5 or 6 mentions of Faye in across 2 games. I mean, how else can I look at this? Aside from people that want to create their, their narrative, oh, she's a giant and, she did this, she did that. I'm not disputing that. But, people didn't come to God of War to watch Faye. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to, and I'm saying this on purpose, and it's going to be triggering. Trigger warning. I know there are going to be like 5 of you on the internet that's going to fucking eat this whole Faye, God of War, Freya, Faye. You guys are going to love it. But the rest of the tens of millions of people that want to see Kratos in a God of War game, I'm sorry, it's not going to go anywhere. You're going to have a few beta male, a few simp like men that are gonna praise this game, and I'm willing to wager maybe 6 out of 10 of them are probably flying that rainbow flag and kind of having their hands like this. I'm pretty sure, but a real man's man, for the most part, you are here playing God of War for Kratos, and if there has to be a separate character you're going to use, that's fine. But you don't take Kratos out of the equation. That you don't do that. That is what you don't do. And time is going to prove whether or not I'm right or not. And I'm willing to put some money that I am, because I've seen this happen time and time again. I remember there was an article that I think it was either IGN, it was one of those shilling game journalist sites, and they said something along the lines of, this is not the first time a male character has been switched for a female character or something like that, and they highlighted a few examples. One of them was the game Dishonored. It was a game from a couple of years ago. Well, actually, over a decade ago, actually. It was a really good game back in the day for those that may have played it. I looked at the sales data, and what I can tell you is that ever since the first Dishonored game, which sold close, I think a little bit over 5 million copies, every single game Dishonored that came after, Dishonored 2 and the other one that I think that was a female lead, what do you know that the sales for each game got lower and lower and lower, to where the final game of Dishonored only sold 0.7 million copies. So it's like, if you really, in fact, you know what? I can show you. In fact, let me show this on screen. Actually, I want to show this because I know it's a part of my replies. If I go to reply, and just so you can see what I'm talking about. So let's see. Oh, this is a good one. This is a good photo right here. Look at what they did. Somebody posted this. Oh, this guy Cabrutus. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, they're constantly, you know, it is what it is, I could speak more about Witcher 4, but that's entirely different. People have the controversy surrounding Witcher 4 is a little bit different, but I think all of the other ones here, they definitely deserve some backlash, especially Ghost of Tsushima. That one was, that one needs to be studied, but that's not what I really wanted to show. Here it is. So you see what I typed here. I said I would like to also, oh no, I was responding to somebody else, but this is the same thing I wanted to show. So if you look here, this right here, if you're able to read this, this is the sales data of each Dishonored game. And you know, you'll notice a certain theme. The first game was at its level. You look at the second game and look at the other game. And what do they have in common? They decided to go. Now, I'm not going to say that's the only thing. It could also be maybe a gameplay mechanic. It could be maybe the length of the game. It could be maybe, but you have to also factor in that Dishonored 2 did have a female protagonist in there. Now, from my understanding, I thought that you could pick either between the Empress or Corvin, I think that's it, Corvo. But I don't know if at a certain point in that game, if Corvo ends up getting killed or something, and then now you're only using the female character. I don't know. But this information does paint a very interesting picture. So you can interpret this as you see fit, but this is not my opinion. These are the statistical facts, as I like to share on my channel. So it is, as they say, what it is. But I don't know how many times I'm just going to critique this. I just don't know. It is. Oh, I even mentioned this here. I said, so with what I just read, what is her purpose going to be then? Place all those unruly gods in line? Size. I'm curious as to how much this game is going to retail for, its budget, and its sales numbers a month after release, because I will be shocked. I forgot to put it. I think I ran out of space. I meant to put if it does well. And that was just me being in response to this guy, what he says here. So it is what it is, but I'm sure the game is going to have its share of sales. I'm quite sure of that, but I think that God of War, I don't know, man. I don't think that this was the right move. Uh, I think, but then I've also heard some people feel that this could possibly be very like a transition game. I've heard people say that. So, I am curious to see if the game is going to be a full $69.99 or if it's going to be like a smaller priced game. I don't know. There's a lot of things that I'm interested in learning that are just simply not available. Right now, the only thing that's out there are people that's hating on the game and those that are glazing the game. So I'm just looking at it from just a purely monetary standpoint. I feel that God of War as a franchise, it literally got to this point because of Kratos. And I just feel like trying to go a different direction like this is not the way. And I guess time will see how right I am. I'm pretty sure I'm going to speak more about this as time goes on, but I guess I can call this my initial thoughts video or segment because I'm actually doing this live. So I guess that's all I have to say about this, and I'm just going to segment this out and post it later, and that's about the end of it. So again, if you're new here, hopefully you sub to the channel, support a small creator like myself. With that, peace, salute. And that is a wrap on that. And what else do I feel like doing? Yep, yeah, they're definitely piggybacking off the name, 100%. This, that's actually now that I'm done with that segment, that's precisely why I'm not a fan of female characters being replaced, or replacing the male people, because you know, you're kind of saying that this female character can't stand on her own 2 feet if it's an original concept. You have to shoehorn her in, you know, otherwise you don't believe in it. And, you know, that's the reason why I asked in that segment, you know, how many people would actually buy it if it was called something else. Like if it was a completely different name, you know, because, you know, honestly, you know, the character Faye, she looks kind of generic anyway. So it's like you could have crafted whatever story around her. You know what I'm saying? You could have had it being like, oh, you know, this is a woman, you know, she died on the battlefield and now her soul transcends into the afterlife, and you could have had the same story. Just call it a different fucking game. So I'm wondering, you know, like I said in that segment, I'm wondering if the game was titled something else, would people be excited? Would people buy the game? Would they pre-order the game? And I mean a significant amount of people. I guess we'll never know. But the fact that they're calling it God of War, I just, you know, I don't know, man. I don't know.